Vladimirski. Ryan Weir is half the man he used to be, thankfully.
TVT News Podcast is back today with my guy, Austin, the insurance guy, Glazer.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Owner, founder, president, Safe Shield Insurance.
Anything else?
The man.
I think that's it.
There we go.
So one thing I just want to point out, why the hell are you and I so underdressed on our own podcast? This is the second time this has happened.
I think I'm okay. That's a little bit like you just got out of bed.
Dude.
Well, I do want to add that I've been looking for places to wear this blazer to. I just got it for $100 in Milford at this place. It's like an underground place. You go for suit jackets. You can negotiate. Fantastic. And
Really?
It's the color of Safe Shield. And I figured I needed a Safe Shield colored blazer. And I figured what better time to wear it than on the TVT podcast, right?
I mean, yeah.
Right.
I agree.
You look sick.
Thanks. I'm happy to be wearing
It's
it.
a fucking fire blazer, man.
Thank
I
you.
love it.
Thank
I
you.
love it. So we're going to start talking about you, how you came up.
Sure.
And I guess I'm very curious, and I'm sure everybody else is curious. Did you grow up wanting to sell insurance? Because I don't think that's something that I've ever really heard a kid say, right? I'm going to grow up and I'm going to sell insurance.
Right.
Because you're fucking good at it.
Thank
but I'm
you.
just curious, where did that start?
Sure, good question. So, my story when I was 16 years old, my mother was diagnosed with a terminal form of brain cancer. She passed very quick. I was living in Florida at the time, and my father decided did not want to be a part of the picture. So I left home and I bounced around for quite a bit. Before I was taken in by my aunt and uncle in Westchester, New York, they decided to adopt me. And one of the things they said to me is, listen, we'll always give you food and shelter, but you're gonna have to figure the rest out. So I kind of had to fend for myself and figure out what I wanted to do with my life, you know? So when I first moved to Westchester, I was working like 3 jobs while a full-time high school student. Then I went to college, I was working like 6 jobs. But the theme became, right, that I was pretty good at selling, right? My first job was at a convenience store, and I would make deals with the owner where for every single person that would come in and buy a pack of cigarettes, I would try to upsell them to add a lighter in. And I made a deal with the owner. His name was Young. That was the owner of the convenience store. And I said, listen, if I do this with X amount of people, I want to raise by a quarter on my hourly salary. There I am negotiating for 25 cents on my hourly salary.
And how old are you?
I'm 26 right now.
No, when you're doing
Oh,
this.
16.
16. That's
So 10 years
unbelievable.
ago.
Yeah.
And so like through my theme, then I went to college and I got a job working at the Alumni Association where I would literally cold call alumni to generate donations for like the Alumni Association. And before I knew it, I was moved up to the highest like club, like they called it gift club is what it was called. And it was just like a different like tier of who you would call. And I had raised the most amount of money in the school's history in a very short time. In addition to that, I found this textbook company that was a startup. And what they were doing is they were basically buying textbooks at the end of every semester, and like they needed on-campus representatives to do it for them. Mm-hmm. Pretty wild concept to think about in retrospect, but I did it and I was like doing it. I was getting like, it's just so funny because I think about the things that I was doing at that time, which was I was sliding into people's DMs. I was cold calling people. I was approaching people on campus. Hey, like during finals, I made sure I was in the library. Not, by the way, I was the worst student in the world, but I made sure I would pay people.
I find that very hard to believe.
Oh, don't. I paid people to take I'm a master bullshitter.
Yeah,
really.
me too.
I paid people to take my classes. Like that's why I had so many jobs. So I would be the one sitting there in class, and then I'd have them taking my tests for me. And I would go to the library though, and I would sit there for hours, and I would approach people to buy their textbooks. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because throughout this journey, I realized that I was pretty good at selling people things. And the reason I think it's so funny that I was cold calling people and doing all that stuff is because I do that stuff now, right? And I learned a good lesson through that is that I'm pretty good at this. So what happened is I went on LinkedIn and I applied to 100 different internships. Only one company called me, and it was my previous company, who I'm not going to name drop on the record because I'm under a non-compete. But they cold called me, or they called me and they said, Austin, we want to give you an opportunity to be a full-time intern this summer when you come home from school. So I took it. I kind of just stuck with it. Did I think, and then, one thing led to another. I became the assistant for the #1 agent in Connecticut at the time. And then when I graduated, I went on my own and I realized I was pretty good at it. The thing about me though, just as a person, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And when I commit myself to something, I'm going to do it. Did I think I was going to sell insurance? Absolutely not. Are there times in my life that I don't wish I sold insurance? Absolutely. But is there a doubt in my mind that I won't be doing this until I retire? There's not a single doubt in my mind. This is what I'm on this earth to do, and this is what I will do. Plus, insurance, and this is a long-winded answer, but I'm wrapping it up here. Insurance is a great industry to be in because it's all passive income, right? If you guys pay $1,000 a year for car insurance, I make, let's just say 20%. So I make $200. When you renew in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, I still make $200. Plus, we combine that with all the people I've added since I wrote your policy initially, it's insane. Plus, when all that, like, so that's a reoccurring book of business that automatically generates income. So when I go to retire one day, the amount of revenue that book brings in, so, you talk 20 years, my book might be worth, $3 million, it might be bringing in $3-4 million of revenue. Those sell at a 3.5% multiple. So I'd be looking at somewhere like $12 million to sell my insurance book when I'm in 20 years.
Wow.
So that I think that's what's kept me there, but that's also what caused me to leave my previous company because they didn't offer renewals. But that's the long-winded answer, kind of how I got here, why I'm here, and what did I don't know what I used to want. I probably want to be a WWE wrestler. You guys ever heard of you guys ever heard of Paul Heyman?
Yeah.
I'm a diehard wrestling fan. I've never spoken publicly about this because people are like, "Oh, wrestling's fake." But it's the greatest TV show that never ends.
It's amazing.
Right? And Paul Heyman was the guy that would get on TV. He's this Jewish guy like me, and he would say, my client, and he'd speak this guy up to the moon, and I thought that was something I could have done. Never did it.
You wanted to be Paul Heyman.
I wanted to be the guy that got on TV and spoke about people, and I'm not, I'm a Jew from Long Island. I'm not fit to wrestle, but I can certainly sell anyone anything.
But according to you, if you had put your mind to it and committed to it, you probably could have been a WWE wrestler.
I could have.
You could have.
I could have.
So let me ask you this. Let's go back a little bit. You're 16.
Yeah.
Your mother passes away. You're with family in Westchester. You could have folded.
Sure.
You could have folded. What kept you going?
Well, what kept me going is, and I got the chills when you asked that question, because what kept me going is that I wanted to be great, right? I see the potential. I am so lucky to come from, and I've never spoken about my family before, and I'm not talking about my mom and my dad. I'm talking about my mom's side of the family, my Uncle Carrie, my Uncle Lamb, my Uncle Mark, and all my aunts that they have, and my grandpa, the greatest guy, may he rest in peace. He passed away about a year and a half ago. That side of the family is some killers, man. I mean, my grandfather, he was one of the pioneers that founded Hebrew National, the hot dog company. Not many people know that about me.
My favorite hot dog.
Right. Oh, good. I'd hope so. I brought it up. And then, my Uncle Carrie, who took me in Westchester, retired very young. He was a day trader in New York City and just killed it. My Uncle Lane in D.C., he's one of the biggest real estate attorneys in all of D.C. and then went on to partner up with some of the biggest developers to make DC what it is today. And then my Uncle Mark out in Upper Connecticut was the vice president for one of the biggest energy companies in the world, right? And I think about all those people and I say, why not me, right? The cards are not in my favor right now, but every deck gets shuffled, right? And if every deck gets shuffled, I got to hit at some point. And that's kind of, I guess that's kind of what kept me going. I mean, one thing that also was, I was never good at sports, right? I'd play all these high school sports. I never got any playing time. I was a laughing stock, I'll never forget. I always used to say to people that were close to me, I wonder what my talent's going to be. Because I never was good at sports. It turns out my talent is talking to people. And my talent of talking to people is making me a shit ton of more money than it would have if I played high school lacrosse and started for every year, So I'm thankful that that's my skill. And I think that that's what kept me going.
You found that one thing and you just went for it.
I think so. I'm still finding it though.
I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah, thanks. I'm trying.
Well, every day's a lesson, right? You learn something new every day.
Sure.
No matter how talented you think you are at something, no matter how skilled, there's always a lesson. And I always say that if you think you're the smartest person in a particular room, you better get the fuck out of that room and find another room.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Always grow, always try to go to the next level, as Ryan would say.
No, for sure.
Love that next level.
Complacency. I say this a lot. Yeah. Complacency is the best friend of the devil, and if you let the devil win, you lose.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess that's how I feel.
What are some of the struggles that you came upon, right, coming up solo, so to speak?
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure it wasn't an easy thing. What are something you had to overcome?
So there was a lot that I had to overcome. I think the biggest challenge is just early on, when I was getting ready to go to college. I think that first off, growing up in Long Island, New York, where I was originally from with my mom and my dad up until I was, 14 years old, when I was a kid, I had everything handed to me. My mom specifically always made sure that I was set. Everything was done for me. You have no idea. Everything was done for me. And I think that a big challenge became that when everything happened and I had nothing handed to me, I see all my friends going to these unbelievable universities, right? And there I am applying to SUNY Oswego, which is in upstate New York. And the reason I decided to go there is because it was the cheapest option, right? Because I took on all this debt. And I think the fear of the unknown, like I didn't have anybody's hand to hold mine when I took chances, right? Some other struggles that I think I felt, I'm not sure because I don't like to look at it like struggles. I know that the monetary thing was a big one for me. Like I remember I went and looked at Roger Williams and I forget where, I think it's Rhode Island, I don't remember. I remember crying when I went and looked at it because I was so sad when I found out that it was $45,000 a year because it meant I couldn't go. And I could have, but I just would have taken on debt, and I think that that was a big thing for me, like having nobody's hand to hold mine. To go from the kid who had everything to the kid who had nothing is a big challenge, right? Because there are people that have nothing from the start and can fight and know how. I didn't know how, right? I had everything and then I had nothing and there was nothing I can do about it. And it's harder to go from having everything to having nothing, Yeah. So that was a big challenge.
And I think it's big of you to actually just admit that.
Yeah, for sure.
Say, like I had everything handed to me,
everything
on a silver platter,
literally,
and now here I am, and I got to figure shit out on my own.
Dude, literally, that was a pretty crazy thing.
Do you think you would have turned out differently if it continued down the initial route?
I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in this chair. I wouldn't be the owner of a company. I wouldn't have been countrywide rookie of the year. I wouldn't have been number 9 in the country for my previous company. I wouldn't have made $500,000. I never would have been that guy. Tough times create tough people. You ever, back to the wrestling thing, you ever hear Razor Ramon, Scott Hall?
Razor Ramon.
That's right. He used to say that tough times don't last, tough guys do.
Yep.
Something along those lines. And that's what happened to me, right? You get a little bit of a callus on your skin and you learn to fight. And that's how I learned to kind of adapt. But just because I say all these things, like we were just talking earlier, right? We were saying, I think we were talking with Fran, and we were talking about some of the struggles I'm facing with the business, right? And it's not easy. Like, yes, we're making good money, but I'm not where I want to be, right? Yeah. And it all ties into complacency being the best friend of the devil. If you're happy where you are, you're doing it wrong because you got to keep fighting. And I think that in order to keep fighting, you can't get comfortable.
You and I have talked a lot off the air,
sure,
at events, on the phone, whatever it is. And I just drew a parallel between us that I'm going to share right here on air, and I'm going to get personal.
Go ahead.
So before I was in real estate, I used to work for ESPN Radio.
Yep.
And the way that I got into real estate was my stepdad, who I was very, very close with, passed away in 2016. And I got very close with one of his best friends. And his best friends owned a commercial brokerage in Newark. And he knew that I wasn't happy where I was working, and he was like, hey, why don't you come do marketing for me, for my brokerage? And that's how I stepped into real estate. And in my mind, his death brought me to real estate. So I can't fail at it.
Yeah.
So that's the connection that I always make. And I wonder if you ever think back to your mom and how that kind of happened, and if you draw that same parallel.
I think that early on I did. My mom passed away 10 years ago. At this point, I think that I just want to be great, right? I think that the deep down chip on my shoulder is that growing up, I never was the kid that got good grades, and I had a lot of friends, but I was never thought of as the smart kid. I had all these friends that, like I was mentioning earlier, from Long Island that went to all these Ivy League schools, graduated, went into investment banking in New York City, making $100,000, all that stuff. But there I was making $300,000 when I was 23, So it was like, I didn't have the same education they had, but I'm doing it anyways, right? And that chip on the shoulder to want to be better than everybody else, I think plays a part. And I know that there's also that part of you shouldn't care what other people think, but everybody should, right? And I think that the people that say they don't, that's how you get complacent, right? Because I always want to be the best. I want to be the best goddamn insurance agent on the fucking world. But it's not just insurance. I want to be multifaceted. I want to start doing public speaking. I want to do this. I want to do that. Because again, complacency is the best friend of the devil, and I'll never let the devil win. I just want to keep swinging for the fences. And listen, let me tell you something. You swing for the fences 10, and if you swing for the fences 3 times, and you get 1 home run, you won.
Yep.
Right?
You're a 300 hitter.
Right. So it's just about just being consistent, never giving up. One of my mentors once told me, we were talking about insurance, and we were talking about how to prospect for events and new ideas. And he said, Austin, go ahead and do this. If it doesn't work, at least you tried. And he goes, listen, even if it doesn't work, put it in your back pocket. Try it again later. Never give up. You see, the thing that makes me good at what I do is I think differently. I think outside the box, as do both of you. I mean, the videos you guys put up with the crazy dad, what is it? The
Annoying
dad. Oh, shit. But all the videos you guys do, you guys yourselves are in a very, very saturated industry right now, right?
Ridiculously
and every
saturated.
realtor is making videos. But you guys are the only videos that I see that actually stand out to me because they're so different. That's what I did, right? I looked for an opportunity that existed, which was nobody was using social media, and I used it to my advantage to create who I am today. So that's kind of what gives me that chip. It's like constantly staying on my toes. It's not necessarily a money thing either. It's more about like doing things my way. You know, you see the chain on me right now, my way. And this means a lot to me. I could go into it, tell you about it if you want, but this...
I do.
Well, this changed, so this means a lot to me, and I'm happy. I'm actually honored to be sharing this story on air. I'm probably going to have Fran make a clip of this after, so I can put it on my Instagram. And we take a pause, so we have a ready begin to the clip. No, I'm only kidding. So this chain, it says "My Way" on it, and what that means. And by the way, these are my mom's diamonds. When she passed, I was left very minimal things, but I was left a couple pieces of jewelry, and I had these sitting in a safe for years and years. Well, when my grandfather passed, he was my favorite person in the world. And the song "My Way" was playing in the background when he passed away, completely coincidental. If you knew my grandfather, though, he did things his way, the colors he wore, the way he dressed. I mean, he wore a literal trumpet mouthpiece draped in gold around his neck. I mean, he was the founder of Hebrew National. That's who he was. But when I first had that chain made, I never wore it because I was ashamed of the way it looked. I didn't like it, right? But then what happened to me is when I quit my job working where I was and starting my own company, and I realized that I can create this evolution of Austin the Insurance Guy into this new Austin the Insurance Guy, I realized that shit, I am doing things my way. And I started wearing it every day since. And that touches on to tie the whole entire long-winded answer back. That's how I kind of carry myself the way that I do, you know?
Is that the end of the clip?
I think so.
Good. All right.
I forgot where that question even started. I went on such a long-winded rant.
No, it was a great clip, man.
Yeah, thanks.
I was gonna actually piggyback off what you said a little bit earlier, but it seemed like when I first met you, I told you that I was looking for car insurance.
Yeah.
You reached out to me, and then I wanted to do like one of those bundle packages for everything. And I can't remember the specific details, but you said to me, "This is actually new to me, and I need to learn this." And you were open to actually admitting that, to go find out the information, the proper information, and get back to me. So you were willing to actually learn the information.
Dude, 100%. Like, I'm really glad you brought that up. I think that all the time, the biggest problem in any of our industries is that people think they know what they're doing and they don't, and then they make mistakes. I'm a very, very big believer in doing things correctly the first time, and then so there's no more mistakes. Like, I'm the first to admit when I take a client on that, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. And it's not that I'm not going to figure it out. It's that, hey, give me a couple of hours to figure out how this works, and then let me call you back. I'm not going to bullshit you on the phone and make up an answer because you could prove me wrong. And then all my credibility has been devalued.
By the way, your couple hours is usually like 10 minutes.
I do move quick. I do move quickly. Customer service, baby.
Efficiency.
Customer service.
So, you're kicking ass at your old company, right? And you're like, listen, it's time for me to go out on my own. Okay? Tell me, how did you come up with Safe Shield? The evolution of that idea, that thought process. How did you come to the conclusion that, hey, it's time for me to do my own thing?
Cool. So here's the thing. I have to be very careful about how I word this answer, but when you work for a big company, as I'm sure you saw when you worked for ESPN, when you work for a big company, they want you to build your brand under them, under their corporate umbrella. I don't like trends. I like to buck trends, And I was doing Austin the Insurance Guy before my previous company was even thinking about using social media to their advantage. Like, I was one of the pioneers, and listen, I'm on the record saying this. I was one of the pioneers in the insurance industry that was using social media the way I was, because nobody was doing it. I was one of the young guys coming in. I was doing this in college. I was one of the young guys that had to find a way to create a way to stand out in an industry that's filled with boomers. So I was using social media, and it got to a point where there was a couple of reasons, right? One, they don't pay you that well on renewals, which to me was just like, what's the point of this? Like, that means I have to work just as hard every year to bring in the same new business. And to me, that's stupid. While of course I want to work just as hard, the goal of insurance is passive income. That's why I buy rental properties, because it's like passive income, So when I realized that, I was like, this is, I knew it for a long time, but it wasn't breaking the camel's back. What broke the camel's back is they really started to get on me about Austin the Insurance Guy, and they wanted me to brand their way. And I said, in much more polite terms, fuck no. I've worked too hard to build this. I've spent thousands of dollars on branding and creation, and I realized that what I was doing was big enough to stand on its own without the veil of a corporation. I had built my brand originally, and it's all gone now, but like even when I was originally with that company years and years ago, I never used that company's name because I knew that I was the brand.
Yep.
I knew that I knew everybody.
100%.
And you guys do it too.
Yep.
I knew that for a very long time that I wanted to do this my way. So, the necklace. And I eventually realized that I couldn't do, well, actually what I really went through is I actually realized that I didn't want to be there anymore. But most importantly, it wasn't about the money anymore. I started to become very mentally unhappy. I really hated my job. I contemplated leaving the industry. Like I'd never been so, and I took it into my relationship with my ex-girlfriend, probably caused us to break up, but that's okay. But it became my worst enemy working there. So I decided I need to leave. So I interviewed 40 different companies and I got like 32 offers. And then I was like, and then I had some people in my corner tell me, Austin, why don't you go do this? Like, why don't you just go talk to other people, see if you can do it with them? So I talked to a few others who said they wanted to partner with me, do it with me. And I talked to them, and I said, I don't really want to do that. And then I had a couple people in my circle that said, Austin, why don't you go do it yourself? And that was a hard decision. I went to my family, I asked them for some money to start the business because I didn't have it. They said no. So I sat on that for a bit, and I realized that at the end of the day, it's not all about money. It's about doing what you believe in. And I believe Austin the Insurance Guy as a brand can stand on its own. So I liquidated my whole 401k, my stock portfolio, and I dumped most of it into Safe Shield Insurance, and I kept the rest in my own pocket so that I can survive because I'm not taking any money from the business for 2 years because I want to build the biggest insurance brokerage in the entire world as I stare into the camera and tell them that. But
fucking right, man.
That's what I want to do. And then, dude, it was wild to get started. That was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. To start this company was the hardest thing I've ever done. And when the doors opened though, like it was business, like there was obviously a lot of like adaptions to like, being back to business, but like it was hard, man. Like get all your licenses and shit in check and like do all that. But then once the doors open, it's more like business as usual, just like new processes and new systems. So I'm sure you guys are kind of seeing with the move from KW to Howard Hanna. Mm-hmm. It's just like system changes. But now as I was telling you guys earlier, off camera, the biggest change has been going from producer to business owner, right? Because now how do I build that? Like I said, I want to build the biggest insurance agency in the world. How do I do that while also continuing to build this business of great referral partners like you guys and all the other wonderful referral partners I work with? How do I do that while trusting my staff to work those leads so I can still be out in the hands, shaking hands and kissing babies? It's not that easy. And that's the new challenges that I'm faced with as a business owner. But I wouldn't trade it for the world because I'm the happiest man in the world right now because I did everything I said I was going to do, and I'm going to continue to do that.
Sounds familiar.
I just want to take a moment, just take in everything you just said because this fucking kid's going to
Kick
blow
ass.
this insurance thing out of the fucking water.
Thanks.
Let's just be honest.
Thank you.
Like, so going back to your point, and you did say it does sound familiar because it is familiar to us. For me, when I was trying to figure out who I was going to bring in onto the team to take on the things that I shouldn't no longer take on, right? Guys like Ryan, Emily, Karen, Cindy, right? Those people to me are extensions of me.
Of course.
When my clients talk to them, they should feel like they're talking to me.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the case is. So that's what you should be looking for.
It's hard, man.
Find people who are extensions of you and don't rush it.
That's a big piece too. Don't rush it. It's a very,
because TVT, by the way, just so you know, for 3 years was just me and nobody knew that.
Yeah,
I was marketing myself as a team for a very long time.
I've been doing that too. Even when I was at my previous company, I was doing that as well. I was always branding as a team. Easier said than done to find help though. As that's a big struggle to find the right person who wants to be there, who wants to take that chance, right? I'm not paying salary, I don't have that kind of funding to pay salary. We're trying to get an office, right?
Well, you need somebody to believe in the culture. In the culture and what you're trying to build.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, you're probably right. You got me thinking.
I'm usually right. Despite what my wife says.
Yeah. Huh. All right. Well, I know what I got to do now.
That's right. You know what you got to do.
Yeah. All right. What else you guys got?
Nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Last question. Closer question. Ready for it?
Sure.
If you want to give some advice to your younger self, one piece of advice, what would it be? We can wait. It's a hard question.
You will. Hold on.
No, I'm not rushing.
I'd say 2 things.
Let's do it.
Keep doing. I'm going to stare into the camera and tell him, keep doing what you're doing. You're a killer. You're on the right path. Do everything that you're doing right now, but 10 times it. You can be better. Save more money. Eat less out. Like eat dinners less out. And I was always a sponge though. And just have that head of confidence, right? Me 5 years ago, I couldn't have stood in front of a camera and told them I'm one of the greatest to ever do it. But now I sit here in front of a camera and I tell you, I am one of the greatest in this insurance game right now. Am I the greatest? No. Will I ever be? No. And the reason why is because when you're the greatest in one room, you're in the wrong room. But I know that I'm up there in that upper echelon. And you just need to have the confidence and the belief in yourself, because confidence leads to conversion. And if you're not confident, you won't have the same conversion that you will as a confident person. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So confidence sells. I tell you to just keep being confident, keep doing what you're doing. Great things are in your future, like Safe Shield Insurance, which is a full service insurance brokerage that can help you and all of your families and business protect what matters most.
That was awesome.
Thanks.
That was fucking fantastic.
Thanks.
And do you know why all that came to fruition? Because he did it his way.
That's right.
That's
my way.
Austin, the insurance guy, Glazer, president of Safe Shield Insurance. This is the TVT News Podcast. Like and subscribe. See you next time.